Polysecure, Attachment, Trauma and Consensual Nonmonogamy. This book was written by JessicaFern and was published by Thorntree Press LLC 2020. With this thoughtful analysis of Polysecure, you will better understand attachment theory, which has recently entered into the mainstream. Polyamorous psychotherapist JessicaFern breaks new ground by extending attachment theory to the realm of consensual non-monogamy while expanding our understanding of how emotional experiences can influence our relationships. Before getting started on our analysis of the book, let's find out a little bit about the author. JessicaFern is a psychotherapist who specializes in the study of trauma and its influence on relationships. In her practice, which is open to an international clientele, Dr. Fern works with individuals, couples, and people in multi-partner relationships. She aims to help them overcome cultural patterns and conditioning, but above all to help them process the effects of insecure attachment style and past traumas that get in the way of their ability to experience love to the fullest. Now, let's hear our book analysis, starting with the first main theme. According to attachment theory, we are all born with a strong predisposition to bond with those who care for us. This bond has repercussions on our brain development, cognitive abilities, and social life. An attachment bond, as defined by Rudolf Schaefer, is a long-lasting, emotionally significant relationship with a specific person. In the past, therefore, attachment research and studies have only been applied to monogamy. Nowadays, however, there is a sizable group of non-monogamous people who enjoy secure, loving, and healthy relationships with multiple partners. And the insights these studies can provide about the human connection and the bonds created by non-monogamous people is not insignificant. Just to reiterate, the attachment bond is a long, emotionally important relationship defined as connecting us to a specific person. According to the British psychologist John Bowlby, father of the so-called attachment theory, a child is born with a real biological predisposition to develop an attachment for those who take care of them. The attachment would have the biological function of protecting the child and the psychological function of providing security. John Bowlby, 1983. There are several studies that underline the strong impact that the quality of this bond has on the future development of the child, on their cognitive abilities, brain development, mental health, and on the correct formation of future social relationships. Furthermore, attachment affects a person's choice of partner and their ability to organize their emotional life. Already from early childhood, we observe and learn models of representation of self and of the other, which we then tend to apply throughout the course of our life. As children, we need to know that adults will provide us with a safe haven when we need it, a belief that gives us a secure foundation from which we can explore our surroundings. John Bowlby calls this concept the exploratory behavioral system. What's remarkable is that when our attachment needs are met, this system allows us to feel comfortable and free to explore ourselves, others, and the world around us. Research by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth shows that children develop more secure or more insecure attachment styles depending on how well their parents are able to provide a dependable, accessible, and responsive haven for them. In other words, if our attachment figures were absent or changeable when we were children, our ability to freely explore and learn about the world and ourselves will have been stunted, or at least inhibited. When this happens, as adults we develop alternative strategies for interacting with others. Thus we have adults who are always on high alert or who display anxious behavior, or even worse, are avoidant and contemptuous. People with a secure attachment style experience a healthy sense of self and see themselves and their partners in a positive light. Their interpersonal experiences are based on the knowledge that they can ask for what they need. Adults who are confident in their relationships and who know they will be heard and helped by others are obviously comfortable with being alone and doing things by themselves. It is natural for them to miss their partners when they are not physically together, but inside they feel basically calm when they are alone. They do experience the fear of abandonment when temporarily separated from their partner, but not in a way that is harmful or debilitating. According to a rather technical definition, securely attached people experience the constancy of the relational object, which translates into the ability to trust and to know how to maintain an emotional bond with people even during physical separation. Children who have experienced an insecure attachment environment, on the other hand, turn into adults who are scarred by insecurity and believe to some extent that the world isn't safe and that other people are generally unreliable. These children are often forced to struggle to achieve what is defined as a sturdy object relational constancy, and frequently experience the frustration of feeling their relationships slipping out of their hands. Object relational constancy is the ability to trust that your connection and bond with someone will persist beyond a separation or conflict. Obviously, a lack of development in this area causes damage. Children who have a compromised relationship-object constancy are unhappy and grow up to be fragile as adults. This absence during childhood can make it very difficult to overcome disappointment, uncertainty, experience healthy conflict, and deal with the emotional ups and downs that romantic relationships inevitably produce. Bottom line, people with insecure attachment styles struggle with relationship satisfaction because they find it difficult to trust their partners, forgive them, and respond intentionally instead of reacting out of habit, and they tend to commit too soon or not at all. A traumatic event at a young age can negatively impact brain development. If an attachment figure is responsible for this trauma, it can be especially damaging. Our deep sense of self and of safety in the world can be painfully challenged when those we depend on fail to keep us safe, or even worse, are the very ones we should be protected from. How is trauma defined? Generally speaking, trauma covers all those events and situations that overwhelm us emotionally or physically, leaving us out of control, powerless, and alone. The more traumatic an event, the more easily it can send our natural stress response into overdrive, excessively stimulating the nervous system with a sort of chemical cocktail that cannot be processed through our normal mechanisms. This traumatic event can have a lasting effect which, if left untreated, can interfere with our ability to fully inhabit our bodies. When you have a natural ability to exercise full control of your inner world, you can be mentally flexible and respond objectively to small, continuous daily stress. You are able to learn, grow, love, and become attached while also feeling safe. Unresolved trauma can have continuous negative effects on our physical and psychological well-being, leading to consequences on our social skills and ability to do our jobs. So the worst thing we can do to ourselves is to refuse to acknowledge the damage we have suffered, and the best thing to do is seek help to face it and untangle it. Societal change is making some progress, but it is still too slow when it comes to understanding non-monogamous relationships. Over the last few decades, we have witnessed a great cultural change which has helped loosen many consolidated beliefs and deeply rooted social practices, as well as an evolution in people's attitude towards concepts such as race, class, gender, and sexuality. There is still a lot to do in the area of social adjustment. We are still a long way off that ultimate finish line, where each and every one of us will be able to link up, connected by the mutual ties of full freedom and respect. Nevertheless, over the last half-century, marginalized groups have gained more recognition, justice, and rights compared to those ever granted previously in the entire history of the Western world. Despite these changes, the romantic ideal of the monogamous couple has remained virtually intact and is considered the model for everything to do with love and relationships. Clearly, this is a superficial ideal that many couples struggle to maintain, but the numbers provide a picture of how things really are. The divorce rate in the United States is between 40 and 50%, and studies estimate the infidelity rate as high as 60% among married men and 50% among women. What's more, these figures were calculated based on people who admitted to cheating on their partners in surveys, so these numbers are probably optimistically low. We are living in a world that loves to claim monogamy, but where most people are actually polygamous in hiding. In the past, consensual non-monogamy, CNM, or the desire to establish relationships with multiple partners, produced real clandestine communities, which were only brought out of hiding by the sexual revolution in the 1960s. However, awareness and acceptance among practitioners of CNM did not progress until the new millennium, and only in the last 2 decades has there been an increase in officially funded academic research, book and podcast publications, and media exposure with a modern and scientific approach to CNM. The non-monogamous are becoming increasingly visible as a group, and the scientific approach towards understanding the dynamics of people engaged in multiple relationships has been enriched through increasingly accredited studies. Researchers estimate that 4 to 5% of adults in the United States are currently engaged in a CNM relationship. There are over 16 million people who have no issues talking about their relationship with psychologists and researchers, thus making it possible to make great strides in understanding the relational dynamics that were previously kept under wraps. Studies comparing the attitudes of people in monogamous relationships with those of people in consensual non-monogamous relationships have shown some very interesting results. In particular, researchers have found that CNM relationships have levels of commitment, longevity, satisfaction, passion, and love quite similar to those of monogamous relationships. Furthermore, despite what one might be tempted to assume, higher levels of trust and lower levels of jealousy are found within CNM relationships than in monogamous relationships. According to studies, the relational advantages of feeling part of a family, of being part of a relationship system that includes trust, love, sex, commitment, and communication, appear to be independent of whether one is in a monogamous or non-monogamous relationship. Another interesting difference that emerges is that people in CNM relationships do not expect a partner to meet all their needs. They have an opportunity to have what experts define as distinct relationship benefits, and thus to obtain greater satisfaction of their own needs beyond the relationship, with more time to take care of their personal growth. According to people involved in CNM, one of the main benefits of being non-monogamous is the ability to have their different needs met by more than one partner. People reported feeling that being non-monogamous offered them greater freedom from restrictions in self-expression, both personally and sexually, as well as the ability to grow and develop. Non-monogamy and the psychological theory of attachment, a relationship not yet fully explored that is showing unexpected results regarding the psychological maturity of non-monogamists. According to the traditional interpretation of attachment theory, couples must create a sort of bubble around them to ensure the security of their relationship. Couples should only depend on each other emotionally, duplicating the attachment method projected into adulthood. Some experts go so far as to question whether this model is really healthy, believing the mono-romantic ideal is a type of psychological codependence in disguise. In this light, the choice of non-monogamy appears as an affirmation of self-confidence and psychological maturity. In a survey carried out on more than 1,300 people, psychologists Moores, Conley, Edelstein, and Chopik looked for data to test for differences in attachment styles among people who were in monogamous, swinging, or polyamorous relationships, finding that there were no differences in anxiety levels among monogamous and CNM couples. The same research suggests that people in CNM relationships show even more prominent secure attachment characteristics than people in monogamous relationships. Similarly, a smaller study of 179 gay men found no differences in attachment styles between participants who were in monogamous and those in non-monogamous relationships. Furthermore, in 2014, a study on the attachment styles of people defined in this circumstance as polyamorous compared to people identified as monogamous demonstrated the absence of a statistically significant difference in avoidance. The behavioral strategy which revolves around the avoidance of any situation that could potentially lead to bad moods and dissatisfaction. In 2019, Moores, Ryan, and Chopik looked at the attachment styles of non-monogamous individuals by interviewing more than 350 people who were in at least 2 different relationships at the time. The study showed that people who practiced polyamory exhibited secure attachment styles with both of their partners, and interestingly, having a more insecure style with one specific partner did not affect the attachment functioning of their other relationships. In other words, just as a child may be securely attached to one parent and simultaneously insecurely attached to the other parent, polyamorous adults may have different attachment styles with different partners. Within CNM relationships, partners who have a secure attachment style communicate well, trust each other, stick to their agreements, and discuss desired changes. They act respectfully towards their meta-lovers, their partner's partners, and while they do sporadically experience natural feelings of jealousy or envy, they are always able to support each other. Actually, jealousy becomes an opportunity for greater clarity and does not endanger relationships. CNM couples who are securely attached are able to admit that their relationships require a lot of commitment and recognize that it is not always easy to keep them going. More people in the relationship inevitably means more complexity. An honest way to define these people, able to thrive with their multiple partners, is polysecure. Their ability to be firmly attached to multiple partners is in fact based on the inner security that makes them able to manage the structural insecurity of the relationship. Being polyamorous means being polysecure, i.e. having a secure attachment style that stabilizes the relationship with oneself and with one's multiple partners. And this concludes our summary of Polysecure. If you would like to learn more about any of the topics discussed above, why not try reading the book? Meanwhile, you can enjoy our selection of some of the book's most interesting quotes. It is still predominantly believed that monogamy is not only the morally superior way to practice partnership, but also the one and only way to do so. Consensual non-monogamy is an umbrella term for the practice of simultaneously having multiple sexual or romantic partners where everyone involved is aware of and consents to the relationship structure. When people are securely attached, they enjoy each other and the process of living as consensually non-monogamous. Being polysecure is having secure attachment with yourself and your multiple partners. And finally, before saying goodbye, we will leave you with the key takeaway from the book. An attachment bond is defined as a long-lasting, emotionally committed relationship with a specific person. We are born with a biological predisposition to develop this type of relationship because it is essential for the protection of our children. Despite the great changes that have taken place in society, monogamous couples are still considered the ideal standard of love and relationships. Millions of people in the United States are engaged in consensual, non-monogamous relationships, and these people can be defined as polysecure. Their ability to be linked to multiple partners is in fact based on their inner security.